So, a movie that I have been very eager to see is finally out in theaters. Unfortunately, I couldn't get an early screener for this one or find any early show times, but it is out in theaters and I am really excited to talk about it because it's definitely one of the more popular films from this year. Of course, I'm talking about Sean Baker's newest film, Anora. Anora, written and directed by Sean Baker, is about a sex worker who meets this Russian guy and ends up marrying him. But the issue is that she marries the son of an oligarch. So the family finds out about this wedding that takes place, and they want to try and get it annulled. This movie was fabulous. And honestly, not at all what I was expecting. It is a very adult movie and definitely one of the more adult R-rated films to come out in theaters. And Sean Baker even said that he wants more adult, R-rated kind of movies out in theaters. He thinks that that's sort of missing from the cinematic world. But Anora was genuinely moving throughout the entire thing. And I get why people are considering it to be not only one of the best films of the year, but one of the best films in recent years. So, Anora is played by Mikey Madison, who you might recognize from Scream, which is actually the movie that Sean Baker saw her in and knew that he was going to have her play Anora in this movie. And honestly, I can completely see the vision as to why he wanted her to be in this movie, because the screaming is all so similar. Who knew that you could have a scream queen without being in a horror movie? Because let me tell you, there are a ton of screams in this movie, and they are beautifully executed every single time. I was cracking up. It was awesome. Now, the movie sort of went how I expected it to go, like the first 35 to 40 minutes in which we, see her life as a sex worker, as a stripper. We see, her communication with, the people that come into the workplace and how she goes about making money, living her life, the way people treat her in very disrespectful or friendly ways. So that is what I was sort of expecting when going into this movie. But the rest of the movie that came after that, that was not at all what I thought this movie was going to be. I didn't think that this movie was going to be funny. I genuinely think it's one of the funniest films of the year. And not because, it's haha, that was a good joke. It genuinely has some of the most creative writing in which it doesn't need, quirky or cringy jokes to make the audience laugh. It is perfectly executed with the direction, the cinematography, the editing, the acting, the writing. It's really funny. And it's, it actually has some of the best collage of actors in any movie that came out this year. I think the acting was spectacular. But anyways, like I was saying, if you were wondering how adult this movie is, it is very adult, so just know that before going to watch it. But yes, getting past that, because I have said many times in the past that, when it comes to either horror, the gore, or sex in these really romantic films, I think they really need to do it in a way that's tasteful and not in a way that they're just throwing it into the bunch because they can. Now, there is that sort of area in filmmaking in which a lot of people think that you don't need a reason to put in very graphic sex scenes or very graphic, horror scenes. And they think that you should just be able to do it. My dog is itching something. They think you should just be able to do it without anyone complaining about it. But I think Anora does a fantastic job at incorporating those themes and ideas into this person's line of work. This is definitely one of the most dialogue-heavy films from this year, and I think Sean Baker really knows how to pinpoint specific behaviors when it comes to people and really knows how to create characters, and really intriguing characters. There wasn't, except for 3 characters that really got any screen time, I genuinely cared about every single character. And I cared about every single character, but that doesn't necessarily mean I liked every single character, because there are a lot of, asshole characters in this movie, but they all have their own specific part in the movie. They're not just thrown into the mix. They all have their own important parts, which really is awesome because there's quite a few characters in this movie. Now, like I was saying before, when we were getting into the 40-ish minute mark of the film and we were starting to get into the nitty and gritty as to what this movie is really about, it was fantastic. I mean, not to get into any spoilers, but there's a scene with Anora and there's these guys and they're arguing, and it's some of the funniest and most authentic stuff that I've seen this year. And it was awesome because you could follow everything that was happening. Sean Baker, the way he directed these scenes was so amazing. And honestly, may just be scenes that I have never really seen before. I think the big message of the film is that we're all just people. And everyone's going to have their own specific views on things, and there are going to be really, really, really shitty people in the world. And there are going to be things that are said that are, not necessarily the nicest things. And there were a couple moments where there were characters that you didn't really expect to have any sort of amount of like empathy for or like emotions for. But there's one scene that I won't get too far into, but basically one character calls this other character a really, really like offensive name that I can't say on here and I wouldn't say in general. But they call them that, and they sort of just are, they sort of just shut down. They're sort of confused as to what the words mean or what it is, and the person who called in the name doesn't do like a very good job at explaining what it is. Basically just saying, that's what it is. You are that. And they sort of shut down and just kind of go along with it. And I don't know what's like, there is definitely, this movie pulls at your heartstrings. It doesn't really do so much to make you sit there and bawl your eyes out, but it does a fantastic job making you feel like you should be. And I think that is actually much more hard to do than to make an audience cry. And I think it actually might be more powerful in the sense that it gives us a chance to really understand people's feelings and understand the power of words. And I don't know if I'm the only one that took it that way from the movie, but the thing about movies is that we all are supposed to take it similar ways, take it in very different ways. But there were moments like that throughout the movie where it was just like, man, they weren't even picking on me and I feel bad. I know that's just empathy, but like, damn, I feel bad. That was sad. And back on my point about how these are just people, there's moments, there's characters that seem to be, the villain of the movie, but there isn't like particularly a villain in this movie. There are mean people, there are meaner people, there are, misunderstood people as to, what they're doing, but there really isn't like, how they have like goons in movies that, take people hostage because their boss told them to, like, and they're evil. They're not represented like that in this movie. They're just doing a job. They're not trying to hurt anyone. They're not trying to, hurt people's feelings. They're just doing their job. They're doing their best to make sure that whoever their job is for, they're okay. They're not going to get hurt. And I think that was super like original when it comes to crafting a story. There aren't necessarily horrible people in this movie. It's just that idea of that, yeah, there are some really, really, really shitty people. And there are some very degenerate people. And nothing can change those kind of people. This movie isn't about changing people. The movie is about understanding people and understanding that, people are going to let you down. And you can't let that control who you are as a person. And we all have emotions. We're all going to break down. And the idea of having a story be about having characters that are their own specific character and not one character throughout the movie can change their ideology or the kind of person that they are is really amazing, because that is life. That's life. You're not going to have, fairy tale stories in which, there's going to be a misunderstood villain who's, seen as this person who's doing all these awful things and, but they really deep down have this heart of gold. And you can see that heart of gold and you change them by the end of the movie and, happy ever after. That's not what this movie's about. This movie's suffering with the fact that there are just really mean people, and those people will never change. That's just who they are. And there's really powerful moments in this movie. I can't touch on one of them specifically, A, because I don't want to spoil what happens, but B, it's a little bit it's a little bit too grown up to talk on my channel about, but the idea of it is just like, I'm not that because I'm not that. And you know, sometimes that's just the only way that you can answer that. I'm not an asshole because I'm not an asshole. You know, sometimes people just aren't assholes. But anyways, Anora is a movie that really is one that will stick with you, and over time you will grasp onto other thoughts about it. It's not a movie that you can just fully understand it on the first watch or in the first couple days of watching the movie. It's one that over time you're going to be like, you know what? I understand more of this movie now. And, you know, as my review stands right now, I think this is genuinely a perfect movie. It's one of my favorites of the year. I think I have it right below Sing Sing. Sing Sing, nothing will top that this year. That movie, ooh, talk about pulling on your heartstrings. That movie is fantastic. As if this movie is not also fantastic, but it is one of my favorite movies of the year. I think it's one of the most beautifully crafted movies in the last couple of years. And Sean Baker, I think, actually might be one of the most influential and amazing directors of the 21st century. But anyways, that'll bring us to the end of my review for Anora. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, or if you didn't, let me know in the comments below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I want to know. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the video. I appreciate every single one of you. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe if you like these kind of videos. But that'll bring us to the end of this video. I will see you in the next one. I appreciate every single one of you. But remember, your movie moment is right around the corner. See you in the next video.